Okay, hello to Honors Algebra 2. This should be Wednesday the 29th. Welcome to Mr. Patterson's class. This is Mr. Clendenin, and we have been looking at this formula for the sum of arithmetic sequences, which is n divided by 2 times the quantity a sub 1 plus a sub n. That might be a little bit blurry, but I think you can read that. Okay, now we're just going to use that formula to do some different things today. So we need to just kind of develop and solidify our understanding of all the pieces to it. Like n, what is n? N is how many numbers you're going to be adding up. And we've talked about how we only need to know two numbers. We need to know a sub 1, the first number in the sequence, and a sub n, the last number in the sequence that we will add. Okay, so we're going to work our way through this formula, finding what the first terms and n and a sub n, what those specific terms are, given some different information. So here in our first example, we have a sequence, and we can see that it is arithmetic. We're adding 5. And eventually we run into 215 in our sequence, and we stop adding when we get there. Now, as we add all those up, we get a total of 4,730. Now the question is, how many numbers did we add up? So we're going to find n. So if we just use our formula, I'll copy it down here, S sub n equals n over 2 times the quantity first term plus last term. Okay, and what do we know? What can we gather from our information? Well, we see the first term and we see the last term. So the first term is 5 and the last term is 215. And we know the total we will get when we add them together. 4,730. What we simply don't know is n. We don't know how many numbers we're going to add. Well, when we plug everything that we know in, we get an equation with only one variable in it, so we should be able to solve our way out of this. Okay, so let's just work through this and see what we can come up with here. First off, in my parentheses, 5 plus 215 is 220. And I can divide that by 2 and I get 110. So we can simplify this pretty quickly down to 4,730 equals 110 times n. Dividing by 110 tells me n equals 43. And what does that mean? We added up 43 terms, or we added up 43 different numbers, and we got a grand total on this one of this 4,730. Okay, and that's what today is, just kind of using the information you're given and using this new formula here to figure out whatever we can figure out. First term, last term, how many terms. Okay, we could have taken the sequence that we were given and we could have used our old nth term rule and said, how do we get to 215 if we're starting at 5 and adding 5? As we go. We could have done it that way, but here we're just looking at using this sum formula in different ways. Okay, so let's look at another one. Let's say we know we have a sequence and we add up 67 terms. So we add 67 numbers together. You wouldn't want to punch those into your calculator. You'd have to take your calculator 60 some odd times and come up with negative 7,035. So when we add up all 67 of these numbers, we get 7,000 and negative 7,035. So we're adding up all these numbers, okay, and there are 67 of them. So we'll stop when we hit the 67th number, and the grand total is negative 7035. And we also know what the last number we added was, negative 237. Okay, so what do we want to find here? Well, let's figure out what the first number is. It's always good to know the first number of a sequence. Well, if we just simply plug into our formula, again, what's our sum formula? N over 2 times the first term plus the last term that we're going to add. So we had a sum of 67 numbers was negative 7035. So that would fill in the sum is negative 7035, and our number of terms is 67. We don't know the first number in line, but they told us the last number, negative 237. So again, we develop an equation here where we only have one thing we don't know, so we just need to work our way out of this. So we can do it in pieces here. Since we're dividing by 2, we can multiply by 2 and get negative 1470 equals negative 14,070 equals the first term, equals 67 times the first term minus 237. Then we can divide by 67 and we get negative 210 equals our first term minus 237. Add our 237 and we find out the first number in line that we added was 27. Okay, so there was a 27 sitting right there in the first spot. And it's always good to know in a sequence what your first number is, what your last number is, and how many you add up. So that's all today is using this sum formula for arithmetic, given different pieces of it. And again, if you notice in the first 2 examples, we were given every piece of the formula except one. And whatever one we weren't given, we can rearrange our equation and solve for that one. So that's what you're looking at doing today. Just remember, in this situation, if when you're given this piece of information right here, there's 2 pieces of information in there. How many numbers you add up? 67. And what's the answer you get when you add up those 67 numbers? Negative 7,035. So remember, that's 2 pieces of information in one. Okay, that's it for today. And here I have the homework in the video, so you can copy it from there, or my class will have it attached. And all you do is, same thing we did on the examples, plug everything you can into the generic formula, and whatever you're missing, solve for that. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.